G'day, Ben from Duck Playing Chicken here with the third video in this series of the Bandai SD Macross Valkyrie special set number 2. Now, I have finished all the base painting as per the last video, but there are some details that I need to paint. So for that, I'm actually going to be doing brush painting, and I'm going to use some enamels, enamel paints, to do some of that detail painting. So I'm going to start with the landing gear. So you can see that I paint it in the gunmetal, but of course I need to paint those tyres. So for that I'm just using XF1 flat black. Now the good thing about using enamels is that they're easy to clean up, and so they won't react with the lacquer paint underneath, which makes it good for people like me who tend to make a lot of mistakes. So all I'm going to do here is basically get a little bit of this enamel paint on the brush, and for things like tyres I want to keep the middle bit there in the metallic, so I would keep the brush sort of flat to the surface. And the good thing about enamels is they take a while to dry. Now if you have a look at this, you can sort of see it's a bit lumpy. You can sort of see some of the brush strokes in there, but that's not a problem because this stuff, as it dries, it'll actually self-level. And so the I guess the double-edged sword is that when you're using enamels, you do need to give them plenty of time to dry. And because I'll be throwing a gloss and matte coat over these, I do need to leave it for quite some time to make sure that the enamels are dried properly. So I'm going to leave it for a week after I've done this brush painting. It should be enough time. Okay, so if we have a look at the tyres, the flat black enamels worked really well. It's gone pretty smooth. Now these missile packs, the ends of the missiles need to be painted white. So for that I'm going to use XF2 flat white, again an enamel paint. So if we have a look at, you can sort of see the missiles there, and these little white ones, these, I'm going to paint the ends using X6, which is again enamel paint, to me orange. So get those painted up. Make sure you give this enamel paint a good shake, and on the brush, literally just a couple of dabs, and I'll give the effect of the ends of the missiles. Now the great thing about this enamel paint is it's just so pigment rich. So even over a dark colour like this gunmetal, yeah, it actually comes up really well. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get all those done. Okay, so I've done the sort of missile accent colours, and now I need to move on to the red details. So for that I'm using XF7 flat red, and there's actually quite a number of sort of little details that are red, like on the VF1A and 1S. There's like on the side of the legs there's a little red dot. There's red dots on these arm packs here. There's a red mark on the weapon, and so yeah, there's quite a few sort of areas that just require that little accent of red. And again, this enamel paint, because it's so pigment dense, it just goes onto the stuff, and you don't really need to do sort of multiple coats in most cases. So shake. I think the gun pod, I think this is the only sort of extra colour that's on it. Now there is a panel line here. It's a guide. Alright, so you can see it's sort of a bit gloopy at the moment, but once that dries, that'll dry nice and flat. and it will self-level to a degree. So it takes me back to when I was painting models as a kid, and the only thing I had was enamel paints. So put that on a stand, and I'll go ahead and do the rest of the red accents. Okay, I finished adding the red details. You can see the dot there on the side of the leg. I can clean up those edges with a bit of enamel thinner after it's dried. So again, it's another good reason to use enamel over the lacquers. Done the details on these arm packs here. Also the gun pods. A little bit rough, maybe needs a little bit of cleanup. And now I need to do the little thruster details on these leg side packs, and also for the fast packs on the back here. So I've got three little sort of jet details, so I need to paint them metallic. And for that I'm going to brush paint some Vallejo 71065 steel, so from the Model Air range. Stuff good shake. I've got my tile here for a palette. So with the brush. You can sort of see how well that covers straight away. For a paint that's actually designed to go through an airbrush, stuff actually brush paints pretty well. And this is of course a water-based acrylic, so that means I can again clean it up with a bit of acrylic thinner, and it won't affect the underlying lacquer paint. Alright, so you get the idea. Alright, so I'll go ahead and brush paint all of those, and that will be essentially all the paint brushing details that I have to do, and we'll be ready for the gloss coat and next stage. Okay, I painted in all those metal details, and I've just realised I've actually missed a part in the painting. So these rectangles here on the fast packs, I'm going to paint them with SMS gunmetal, so I will off camera mask those up and repaint those, because yeah, they are supposed to be solid colour. If you have a look at let's see which one's going to come up clearer. You can sort of see there they're sort of shown as black, but I think if I do it in a metallic colour it'll give it a little bit of interest. So yes, I can't believe I missed that, because I know on the previous set I'd actually sort of painted those, so you know, that's alright, good to catch it at this stage before I was sort of finished up. All the pieces have been given a gloss coat using SMS clear gloss, and so now it's time for some panel lining. Now, given the sort of cartoony nature of the SD kind of format, I'm going to go with just some black panel lining, so I'm just using a Tamiya panel line accent color black. So it's going to be pretty stark, but it kind of ties into that kind of cartoony look, and that's what I did on the previous set as well. So to show you how this stuff works, give it a really good shake. It's just really just thin down enamel paint, and then if I bring up the camera and it'll focus, if I touch it to the panel lines, you can see how the capillary action just pulls it through. So just a little dab, and the capillary action will draw the thinned enamel paint down the panel lines. And it just brings out all that sort of detail. Yeah, that's pretty rough, given that I was doing it on camera, so but that gives you the idea. So what I'll do is I'll let that dry for at least half a day, sometimes to a day, because the longer it dries, the better the cleanup result is. You don't want to be cleaning it up when it's still wet, because what happens is if you use your enamel thinner on a cotton bud and you go over it, if the enamel paint's still wet, it'll just draw more of it out of the panel lines, which you don't want. So I'll leave this dry for a good half a day to a day before I'll actually do the cleanup. I've got a lot of panel lining to do, so a lot of pieces, so I'll get all that done off camera. I've left the panel lines to dry for just over a day, so you can see the mess that I've made there. So in order to clean it up, you can use enamel thinner, or I use this stuff, Shellite. So this stuff is a lot cheaper than enamel thinner, so I sort of just decant it into a smaller container, use some cotton buds, we'll focus, use some cotton buds and a bit of paper towel just to dab off the excess. And then what I'll do is just gently rub across the surface, and at the same time I'm sort of rolling the cotton bud so that it doesn't smudge a lot. It's going to smudge a little bit, but and you can sort of see the gunk that's picking up there. So I'll just go over it a little bit more. But you can see the difference that makes. Okay. If we do it one more, got this one here with these this little detail. Just gently rub over the top of it. And you get a nice clean sort of detail line there. It's a process I've done in probably most of my builds. So apologies to those of you who've seen me do this a million times, but it is a nice easy process and it does make a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the rest of these parts, of which there are quite a number, so it's going to take me a while just to clean up the panel lines. And then I'll let it dry for another day or so, and I'll go back and just check over the pieces again, because I inevitably miss spots first time around. So it's just about sort of making sure you pick up all the panel line blotches you've made, because once you put a flat coat over it, whatever's there is going to stay there. So if you've got a blotch that you've missed, once you put a flat coat over it, it's going to be there forever. And it quite often does happen to me on models, even after I check it the second time, still sometimes there's bits I miss. So time to talk about decals. So looking at the sticker sheet, you can see we get, for example, the bands for the wings with the kite logo on it. We also get stickers for the blast shield that have the skull and crossbones on it. So the stickers are reasonably comprehensive, but there's a couple of issues I have with stickers, and it mainly has to do with compound curves, because stickers never go over those particularly well. So especially over the cockpit. And so what I've done is I've used some aftermarket decals for that, and I purchased these on AliExpress. I don't know if it helps with the number or whatever. I just did a search for Macross water slide decals on AliExpress. You can probably pick them up on Amazon or eBay as well. And so I've just cut out a couple of the white ones and applied them to the canopy here, and that has a gloss coat over the top of it. Now these decals are far from perfect. They do go down reasonably well, they're reasonably thin, but they can break, so just be aware of that. On the side of the cockpit here, you can see I've masked off a little white dot to put the kite logo on the side of the cockpit there. Now they don't include stickers for that, and even if they did, I probably wouldn't use them. So for that I have used some of this clear water slide decal paper by Hayes Paper Company. And so it's clear, which means that the carrier film is clear. You can also get it in white as well, but for this purpose I used clear. And what I did was I set this up, and I used a program called Inkscape, which is an open source program. You know, if you're doing this for modeling, don't waste your money getting an Adobe account. Don't get me started on Adobe, but Inkscape is a really capable vector graphics program. It's free, open source, and so I created basically a sheet of kite logos. There's for the cockpit here. These ones are for the wings. I also made some for the fast packs, but I think for those I will end up using the stickers, just because of the transparent background. The red's not going to come through particularly well over the blue. So anyway, I'll go through that in a minute. Main thing is, and what I did is I did them at slightly different sizes because I wasn't quite sure how accurate my masking was going to be. So you can see I've already sort of started a lot of the decal process. Also the numbers on the wings for the 1S and the 1A. Except I stuffed up with the numbers because they should be on an angle, so I've had to sort of cut them out individually and place them on a bit of an angle. So this of course was printed with a reasonable quality laser printer, sort of high resolution to high quality, all that sort of thing, and it's come up pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. So let's look at, I'll pull this up so see how small they are. But with this sort of paper, because they're not obviously pre-cut decals, you have to cut pretty close to the edge of them. And I'm going to bring in some water here. So I want to grab one of these very carefully because I don't want to scratch the toner off. Dunk it in the water. I'm just going to put it on the side there. Grab one more. Okay, so I'll let them sit for a bit. And this decal paper is pretty good. It doesn't take long for the decals to actually lift off the backing paper. So I'm going to take my cockpit here and just set it up with some blue tack. Might help if I actually get a shot. So the reason I put the white dot there is because this decal paper is transparent. I need, of course, the white to come through for the kite logo. And it's also going to allow the red to be a little bit more vibrant rather than the red going over the blue. It's going to be a bit transparent. It's going to end up looking sort of like a dark purple colour. So that's why I masked off the circle there. I'm going to use some microset to put down first. So this will help the decal sort of bed down a little bit and just help reduce that sort of surface tension, which is always a bit of a problem when you're wrangling decals. Got a toothpick which I can just test to see if those decals are moving off the paper, and they already are. And I'm going to try and maneuver this around. Get the decal in place. Just going to lick off a bit of that water. Okay, and you can see that actually looks reasonably convincing. Certainly not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot easier than painting it on, that's for sure. So I'll do the other one as well. So there we go. Now I'm going to let that dry a bit before I put Macross over it. So Macross will help the decal sort of bed down a lot better. But I want to let this dry a bit, because what I've found with these custom decals is that if I go ahead and put Macross on them straight away, the decal will lift. So it's just a matter of sort of giving it a chance to dry in place first. before I put Microsol over it. Okay, so for the kite logo on the wing, it's the same sort of deal, just cut it out reasonably close to the edge of the decal. My micro set. Just a little bit of that around the logo there. And the good thing about the design of the wing is they've put the panel lines in there for the actual logo itself, so you can actually line it up really well. And based on the other wings that I've already done, using these decals was definitely the best option. I kind of wish I'd done it on the first set as well, because it definitely looks a lot better than masking it off and painting it. Okay, decals ready to slide into place. That is almost perfect, perfect match. There we are. That looks pretty good. Certainly looks better than painting it on, and it's a little less problematic than sort of applying a sticker. So let those dry for a bit. Now, just to show you on the wing with the number on it, I had to sort of cut them out individually and place them on a bit of an angle. So that was a bit of a stuff up on my behalf. But if we look at, decals on, some of these cockpits, they came up pretty good. So I've got a few decals here that have been allowed time to sort of set up. Now it's time to add some Microsol. So just going to carefully apply a little bit of it over the decal, and I'll probably apply multiple coats of this just to make sure the decals are well and truly sort of bedded down. Okay, so I'll leave that set up for a while, and I'll go ahead and do that with the rest of the decals, and the next thing we'll deal with the fast packs. So for the fast packs, I've decided to add the stickers just because it's cleaner. I don't have to worry about making decals that fit. I don't have to mask off the white. It just makes it a lot easier. Now for the previous set, I think I actually did some water slide decals, aftermarket ones, but I think I used one of the stickers. I can't remember for which one. The stickers are fine, and I know that a matte coat will go over them okay. It won't affect the sticker ink. So yeah, they look, they look pretty good. I think it made a difference actually having a flat surface behind them. So where they have their sort of embossing of the detail, it made a difference just sort of putting in a bit of styrene. So here's one that I haven't put the sticker on yet. One thing just to make sure you put the stickers up the right way. It was one I did, the first one I did, and I put the sticker up upside down, so just be careful before you sort of really burnish them down. What I tend to find is if you use a pair of tweezers and just pinch the very top of the sticker, and then you can sort of use there's this horizontal line that goes across the fast packs that you can kind of use to try and orient the sticker properly. That looks fine. So there we go there. But yeah, you just want to sort of place it very lightly before you sort of burnish it down with your finger. Alright, so all of those are done. They're nice and vibrant. So now I'm just still sort of putting some Microsol on some of the water slide decals, but essentially everything's painted, decals down, all that sort of thing. So now it's time for a flat coat. So for that I'll be using SMS Flat Clear, and so I'll be back once that's done. Everything's had a matte coat ready for assembly, And one of the final sort of bits of assembly is to get the feet on the legs sorted with a bit of styrene tube. So if you watch my earlier video in the series about the sort of me trying to work out how to be able to paint the foot separately and then attach it later. So this is just a bit of styrene tube. I've had to thicken it up a little bit with a bit of glue, and that will mean that the foot will be held in place a bit tighter. So what I've got to do is get this started, and use a pretty tight hole there. Get the foot lined up. And force it through. Let's see if we can see that, but it hasn't gone all the way through to the other side yet. So there we go, that felt like it. Okay, so now we've got the rest of the tube hanging out. So I can trim that off, trim that flush. And then I'm going to take some Tamiya extra thin. Because of the tube, I want the glue to go down the middle of the tube. And a bit of glue around the sides. And of course there's these pieces that clip on here, so this white tube bit will be covered up. It's not like that's going to be seen, but I will leave that sit. And leave it sit for a good couple of days. I really want that styrene cement to set up really well before I start sort of messing with the foot. Okay, so I'll do that with the rest, and then I can get some of the other assembly done of the kits. Okay, time to wrap these guys up. As you can see, I've assembled them, put them together as in the fighter mode. But just a couple of final thoughts about this kit. It is very similar to the first set. There's a lot of cleanup to do, a lot of seam removal, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty cool representation of the Valkyries. The fact that it, can transform with minimal swapping of parts. One thing that I have a bit of an issue with, and I just couldn't fix it, I tried it, is this gap that happens here, and this is sort of where the two halves of the fuselage meet, and for whatever reason they just don't join, and it's across the board, it's on all of them, so it's one thing I'm going to have to deal with. But apart from that, it worked pretty well. I think the decals sort of worked reasonably well. They're not far from perfect, but still a lot better than the ones I painted in the previous set. So anyway, time for the beauty shots, and until the next video, I will catch you later.